If you want to listen to the inner paranoia of some 40-year-old man with a plot that ends up like going absolutely nowhere, then I guess that this is for you. And it might just be that I hate this book. I'm so sorry if you can't keep up. It's complicated. Riley Sager should have stopped while he was ahead. Why did you put that in there? Hi friends, today we are dedicating some time for new releases because there have been specifically 3 new releases that I would consider to be like some of my top most anticipated releases of the year that have all come out kind of simultaneously that I really want to read. So I thought, what if we just like read them all in this vlog, figure out if I'm oh, I can't say that. It is too early in the vlog. The F word, Lexa. I've been having some mixed outcomes with new releases lately, but these are the ones that I'm like most hopeful / excited for / also kind of apprehensive about, so we'll see. I actually have a physical copy of one of these books. Should I go get it? Okay, I'll be right back. I don't know what order I'm gonna be reading these books in, so this isn't like order. This is just a quick rundown of the books that we're gonna be reading in this vlog. Good thing I totally have all of my stuff together and I'm really prepared for this. Oh my god, I still don't know how to pronounce this word. Did you see that too? I went into that with like such confidence. Evocation? Emphasis is on the K? Oh, I've been really pronouncing that incorrectly. Evocation. Whenever I remember that S.T. Gibson came out with another book, I like immediately bought this. I'm excited for it, but a little bit apprehensive because I loved A Dowry of Blood and I hated An Education in Malice. So this is S.T. Gibson's chance to kind of redeem herself. In my eyes, not that she needed redeeming in any other way. I just have trust issues with her now. But I think that this is gonna be a lot different because I know it's the start of a series. We're following a male like main character, although there might be other perspectives. I think that this is Polly, and we've got like witchy vibes rather than vampire vibes, which were the last 2 that I read. Another one that I'm excited but also apprehensive about, that should be the title of this vlog, is Shauna Maguire's newest release, Tidal Creatures. I absolutely love Middle Game, all-time favorite. Seasonal Fears, really didn't like it. The more I think about it, the more I hate it. This one is gonna be like the deciding factor on whether I continue in the series or if I pretend Middle Game is a standalone. Please, Shannon, please. And then last but not least, we've got Riley Sager's new book. Oh, you had to do it, okay? I have such mixed feelings on Riley Sager. I actually haven't read any books that I hate from him. I have probably what is the most unpopular Riley Sager opinion. My favorite Riley Sager of all time, The House Across the Lake. I don't recommend it. Don't read it. You're probably most likely not gonna like it. It just was, it worked for me. It was a moment in time. It was an era. And listen, Riley, I have been out here in the trenches for you in The House Across the Lake. So if you do me dirty with this newest book, I believe it's called Middle of the Night, I'm gonna be so pissed. I'm so excited to read some new books, so let's go ahead and get into it. But before, I'm remembering now. I'm finally remembering to tell you that if you enjoyed this and you want to see more, make sure you hit that like button and also hit that subscribe button. We could have so much fun here. It's good times, good vibes, even when we're kind of in a major reading slump and we're just trying to carry on. That's where we're at right now. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. This book is probably like my most anticipated book of the year because it's by one of, if not my favorite author, which is Shauna Maguire, and it is a sequel to one of, if not my favorite book of all time, Middle Game, which I was able to find in the mess of all of my books right now. I was not able to figure out where I put Seasonal Fears, which is the second book in the series, and then I have the newest release, which I will angle like this so you can hopefully see it, Tidal Creatures, on my Kindle. Because to be perfectly honest with you, since I absolutely love Middle Game and then really was disappointed by Seasonal Fears, I didn't hate it, just in context of how incredible this book was, that was such a letdown. I am a little apprehensive going into this third book, so I was a little apprehensive to spend almost $30 on the hardback if I don't like it. So luckily I got in very quickly at the library and I was able to get this on Libby, so I didn't have to spend $15 on my Kindle, because then it's always a question of like, okay, if it's $25 or $28 to get the book and then $15 or $18 to get the Kindle, but like the book I can borrow out to people and I have a physical copy of, almost $30 for a book just feels ridiculous. Anyway, I didn't want to do that until I was like sure whether, like, this is the deciding factor in whether I am going to continue on with the series if the series continues on, which I would assume it's going to. I literally have no idea what this third book is about, but I would assume like if the response to it is positive, it's going to continue, or if I am just going to pretend that I didn't read either book and just consider Middle Game to be a standalone. So excited but apprehensive would be the vibe going into this first book. Like I said, I don't know a lot about it. I know that I've read the synopsis, and the synopsis went like in one ear and out the other. I literally couldn't even tell you what kind of concepts this is about. So middle game is already so difficult to describe because I feel like you have to go into it just like knowing that you're not gonna understand anything that's going on for most of the book. And are you really gonna understand what's going on by the end? Debatable. It's mainly just vibes and Shauna Maguire's writing and how incredible the characters are and how much you fall in love with the characters, at least I did. And it's following Roger and Dodger, which are twins that aren't quite human. And it deals with like the alchemical arts, alchemical magic, science, and how that like interacts with magic in our world. And it's like it's set in our world, but in a version of our world in which alchemy exists and people can try to and are currently trying to embody manifestations of different concepts. Listen, if you're like, literally, girl, what are you talking about? That's it. That's all I can tell you. It's better, I feel like, to just go into middle game knowing as little as possible. But in case you haven't already been convinced to read it by my channel, if you've been here before, or if you're new here, it has one of my favorite first opening lines of any book, which I shall read to you now. The chapter is called Failure, and the little opening part of it says, timeline. 5 minutes too late, 30 seconds from the end of the world. First sentence. There is so much blood. Thank you, Shauna. Yes, you had me in the first half, you had me in the middle, and you had me in the last half with this. Can I say the same with the series? You had me in the first half, not gonna lie. Second half, not so much. Okay, now with tidal creatures, which I'm now just going to pop up a picture of here. I literally don't know what the vibe is. I don't know if this is going to be a book in which I can't really talk to you much about because most of it is going to be spoilers for Middle Game and Seasonal Fears. Because technically, you could read Seasonal Fears as a standalone. I don't know why you would want to. If you're gonna read any of them, read Middle Game as a standalone and then stop there. Most people love Middle Game way more than they love Seasonal Fears, so I don't know why you would read it as a standalone. I digress. You technically could. I have no idea if this third book is the same. I do know we're following different characters. So in Middle Game, we're following the manifestations, the human manifestations of math and language. Roger and Dodger. In Seasonal Fears, we're following the human manifestations of summer and winter. So it's like dealing with the season, hence Seasonal Fears. In this one, it's tidal creatures, which has a picture of the moon on fire, so I'm going to go ahead and assume we're dealing with like the sun and the moon, just the moon, question mark? I literally have no idea. What I do know is that I plan on hopefully knocking a good chunk out of this today. I am going to also go to Sonic and get myself a little drinky drink because I can tell I'm very thirsty and I need like a watery lemonade. I usually get, here's my current drink at Sonic, in case you were wondering. It used to be faithfully the beginning of this like spring summer. It was an ocean water with sweet cream and also adding coconut to it. However, now I usually end up using my Sonic Run as a way to hydrate myself because I just hate drinking plain water. I hate it. I absolutely loathe it. Most of the time if I'm drinking water at my house, I'm adding Crystal Light to it. But whenever I go to Sonic, currently, it's that I get, you know what? Why am I sitting here telling you this? I could sit in the car and tell you this. On our way to Sonic. Okay, hopefully the sound of the car isn't too bad, but I will literally die of heat in 2.5 seconds. I have the air down as low as I possibly can and I'm already getting hot. I just, literally when I click the camera on, turn this down. I realized that I was telling you so confidently what my like go-to order is now, and then I was like, oh, but I have to add the caveat that like I sometimes get this, and then I sometimes get this, and then I sometimes get this. So really the basis of my go-to order right now is part lemonade, part water with some sort of flavor. I haven't found the perfect one for me yet. Sometimes I really like strawberry. Sorry about that. The only downside to strawberry is that I keep it in my Stanley for a really long time and I don't like that texture. I really like the blood orange. The twisted lime, here's the thing is I want lime. Like I'm gonna go home and add, I bought real limes and I'm gonna go and add that. But to get, like if you order lime, it's 50 cents and they give you one little wedge of lime at my Sonic. And if you order extra, it's $1. And then they like sometimes give you 2 of like the smallest wedges of lime. And that's not quite enough lime flavoring. So I also get some water because the lemonade by itself is a bit too much. And my water at home is gross. Today, I got coconut because I'm gonna go home and put some lime in it. Which, is that the most fun combination? No. But am I absolutely obsessed with anything that has coconut in it? Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This was the right choice. I was worried it would be weird. It's not weird. It is so refreshing and literally exactly what I was wanting, and I'm already so sweaty and so hot. One moment, please. I'm remembering the tricky part about these glasses, which is that when I'm looking straight on, I can't see myself in the viewfinder, but now I'm realizing if I tilt my head back like this and I look through it mainly, like this part of the sunglasses, I can see myself, but this part, no. So a quick little update. I've been listening to the audiobook and reading a little bit of Tidal Creatures, and I'm very lost. I do, which is fine. That is typically how it goes with Sean Maguire books. Like, especially Middle Game, I was lost for most of it, but like I was having a good time and I really liked the characters. I'm having a bit of a harder time so far getting into this because I don't feel like we have solid characters yet that we're focusing on it the way that we did with Middle Game, because it was like distinctively Roger and Dodger, and they had such distinct personalities, and I feel like Shannon knew exactly who they were and was able to convey that to us so quickly. And here we're dealing with manifest concepts of gods and goddesses of the moon. The idea being that like humans and our presence in the world has altered the reality of the world, making certain things that we believe true in their own way. So like every time a certain civilization or group of people has their god or reasoning for or lore around the moon, that idea, concept becomes real, becomes a god or goddess, and then they can kind of team up with a human that is like made to / can hold their presence. Yeah, I'm not explaining that very well, and it's because I really don't understand so far. So we're following a couple of them. I think the plot of this is like a murder mystery, which makes sense because now I'm remembering that the synopsis had something to do with the fact that like these manifestations of the moon were getting killed off. And like they needed to figure out why that was happening. And that is so far exactly what has happened. Like one of them has been killed, and now a couple of them are trying to figure out like what happened and how that was even possible. We're dealing with the concept of the impossible city, which I'm not even going to attempt to try to explain to you, but that like happens in Middle Game. Like that's explained in Middle Game. It's explained in the book inside of Middle Game, because that's another thing, is that there's like a middle grade book in the world of Middle Game, which is like our world but different, that's written, that is technically fictional and fantasy, but like it was written by A. Deborah Baker, who is this alchemist in that world, and she wrote it, but like it's like true, like it's based off of true concepts that she's figured out. And so Sean Maguire wrote excerpts of that book inside of Middle Game, but then Sean Maguire also made a middle grade series like of that book. I'm so sorry if you can't keep up. It's complicated. It's not you. Okay, it's just convoluted. But for Middle Game in the best way. I'm a little bit worried about this one so far. It has the science and weirdness and you don't know what's going on of Middle Game, and that I really enjoy of Sean Maguire's, but so far it doesn't have that writing that I love. Like there's like been a few things that I've highlighted and like some quotes that I'm like, ooh, like pretty writing, but it's not quite up to the same caliber that I'm used to, at least for me, in what I love about Sean Maguire's writing. And I also just don't feel like I'm able to connect with any of the characters right now because I'm so confused as to what's going on that I honestly don't even know who is important, because they're just like all having a bunch of different conversations and about what? But who knows? I'm not totally giving up that I'm gonna love this. Like, there is a chance. I'm just a little bit nervous. We'll see. We'll see. You definitely couldn't read this one as a standalone. Like, it's going to spoil so much of what happens in the first book, and you're not gonna understand who the people are that they're like casually making references to. And like the casual references like matter for you to know that backstory. And now we're kind of getting like, we're splitting off into two different kind of plot lines. So it's tricky because like, yes, technically this story stands on its own, but because you need the backstory of like the world building of how magic and alchemy and science kind of all work together in this world that Shannon has created, even though like it's our world, but her version of our world, you wouldn't, I don't think you would get it, and I don't think that it would be enjoyable, and also it would spoil Middle Game. I do think so far you could read it without reading the second one. They make references to like the summer and winter people, but honestly I don't think that had much world building in it or really expansion of the magic system in in many ways that were that interesting and that like actually matter to what we're talking about now. So as it stands right now, I'm like a little less than halfway through the book. I do think that like you could read Middle Game and then this, if this ends up being one that I would recommend to people. Or if this one sounds like more interesting to you and you just want to skip the second one. But it's a little bit tricky because the second plotline we're following and the characters that we're following in that plotline are more interesting to me. And I want to be able to talk about them, but it doesn't talk about it in the synopsis. So I don't want to give any specifics. So very vaguely, because I definitely think that so far Kelpie, who is like the main character in this part of the story that we're following, is so much more interesting and intriguing to me than the moon people that we're following in what was up until this point like the main plot. And Kelpie and her story are connected to the moon manifestations, and she is not one of them, but she is connected to alchemy and the alchemists at large. And I've been sitting here for a while trying to figure out like how to explain to you how I'm feeling about this book, because it's not that I'm not liking it, and I definitely am enjoying it more than Seasonal Fears, but I'm having the same issue that I had with Seasonal Fears, which is that I just don't think that the character development for most of the people that we're following is done very well. It's at least not done as well as I'm used to Seanan McGuire writing characters. She has written some of my favorite characters of all time. Roger and Dodger from Middle Game. Jack, I am a Jack stan. Okay, from the Every Heart a Doorway Wayward Children series. I think that she's like absolutely one of my favorite characters ever written, and she's so well done. And Seanan does such a good job typically of writing very nuanced, queer, diverse characters. Not that all of them are queer, but the majority of my favorite ones are. And she's just like very good at writing that. And of writing about people who are different and experience this world in a way that is very different from how most people experience it. And that is what I typically like so love about her writing. And I'm just not feeling that from the like major goddesses, the moon goddesses that we're following. And at first I was like, well, maybe it's because like they're not fully human. Like we find out right on the bat, like they're like technically they are, but like a human and this manifestation of the god or goddess is inhabiting the same body, and they can either share consciousness or like one of them can step fully forward while the other one sits back and vice versa. So like we're not always getting to know them, but I don't even feel like they have very distinct voices. Like at any point in time I start to get confused as to whether it is the goddess who is like talking or it is like the human who's talking. And I feel like that's such a missed opportunity that like goddesses in general, like obviously are not human, larger than life, have very large, bold, distinct personalities most of the time. And something about the way that this is written that's just like not coming through for me, and I honestly just like don't care. And that's a tricky situation to be in whenever the main plot right now is really just a murder mystery, like for that part of the book. And if I don't give a shit about the characters and what's happening to them and who is killing them, then like the stakes just aren't that high. Whereas with Kelpie's part, we've only just now started to touch on her, like the last 50 pages or so, not even, and I already feel so much more attached to her storyline and even the side characters who are with her. Therefore, even though we haven't even, like, we've just started developing the stakes for her, I already feel them so much more deeply. And I wish that I felt that with the lunar gods, because I just don't care. Anytime that we I realize that we're flashing back to their perspective, I'm like, oh, they're just going around and around and around and accomplishing nothing and talking about nothing. And I know that when I say that, it sounds like me describing a lot of books that I love, but it's not in an interesting way. It's not written interestingly. It is very, for Seanan McGuire, it's very black and white. Like, it's very typical prose, and like, I don't like that. Like, I love the distinctiveness and the weirdness that comes along with Shannon's writing, and I'm not getting that. And I know that like me saying all of this makes it sound like I'm not enjoying the book, and that's not it. Like, it's good, it's fine. I think it's more disappointing because of the expectations that I have, and I know how well that this could be done. And that's a lot of what I said with Seasonal Fears. I don't want this to come across as like me not enjoying it, because I am. I just know that there was a potential for me to be enjoying this so much more, and I wish I was. And hopefully I can start getting to that point. So it's time to come clean that it has been a couple of weeks since I've updated you, and I just don't know how I feel about tidal creatures. I almost want to DNF it. I'm not going to, but like, I just know that like, this is it. Like, it's not gonna be middle game. I'm accepting that. Like, the series isn't going to keep getting better for me, unlike a lot of series, which is so disappointing because typically for me, a lot of times with series, it takes me like a couple of books to really get into it and into the characters. So sometimes it'll be that like the first book in a fantasy series is like 4 stars and then it's 5 stars, and then like in hindsight the first book like becomes a 5-star all-time favorite in my mind because of the series as a whole. And this just isn't it for me. The plot's gone in a different direction than I thought it would. It's basically a sequel to Middle Game, but told through like a different perspective, and like Middle Game didn't answer or leave any questions unanswered that I cared to have answered. I don't care to follow the characters from Middle Game any further because I'm happy where they were left off, and I just don't, I think no matter what, it's gonna be disappointing. And now they've like really integrated themselves in the story and I just want it to be over. I just want to be done reading this. It feels like I am dragging on and on. And I hate that because it's not like the contents of this, like I'm not hating the story. We actually are getting more of the part that I said that I was really liking. I just went back and like edited all of the clips from before, which was very helpful because I did not remember anything that I had said. And I feel like I have been talking about this book forever. So I just want to check in with you because I have time right now, and I have a feeling that I don't think my thoughts are going to change much by the end, but I wanted to document how I'm feeling now, and I'll come in with a quick update when I'm finished. The last little bit of Tidal Creatures was definitely my favorite of the book, but that was like basically because it was a sequel to Middle Game. Like we passed the, oh, we just have some cameos from those characters and went full into like they are integrated into the plot. And I do like that. Like if we're going to have them, then I would rather have more of them, and I would honestly rather have even more of them than we had in this book entirely, but we had a lot of that in this last little part. I do think quite like my only critique of Middle Game was that like the ending it felt a little bit abrupt, and that like for how long these books are, you would think that like we could spend more time on the ending, and this was like that times 5. But it was so much better than Seasonal Fears. Like, oh my god. And honestly, I think you could kind of skip it. I am a little bit confused because when I went to go look at the reviews, some of them say that this is the series finale, and then some of them say they thought it was, but it's not. I don't think it is. I think that she set up things for our main characters that would make sense for us to have like one more at least. But I ultimately think that this solidifies that I could recommend Middle Game as a standalone. Like unless you are a Shauna McGuire super fan like I am, I don't think that like you need to read the rest of this series because it's not getting any better. It's a lot of walking and exposition and explaining things that like we kind of already know from Middle Game. So I think she wanted to focus a lot on the world building and like expanding possibilities of this version of reality. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It was good. It was fine. I think it's like the most 3-star book to 3-star for me. It was fine. It was good. I wouldn't ever reread it, and I wouldn't recommend it. I feel like my entire review of Tidal Creatures and Seasonal Fears could have just been summed up into just read Middle Game. I'm also realizing now with the timeline of this vlog that it is a new releases vlog, but these books were much newer when I started reading them. I just had so much going on at the end of June and the beginning of July that it has taken me like weeks to get through just this book. It's gonna take me weeks to get through a couple of the other books that are in this vlog too. So I'm so sorry if by the time that you're seeing this, some of these are old news. Hopefully they're still relevant because they're only a couple of months old. I just don't have a lot of time for reading, and I've been doing so much that I'm so exhausted that none of the books that I'm reading are really compelling enough to like make me get past that exhaustion to keep reading. A brief synopsis of my history with Riley Sager. I read Lock Every Door, that I do not own physically. That was the first ever Riley Sager book that I read. I liked it. It wasn't an all-time favorite, but I was like into Riley Sager. Then I jumped right into it with The House Across the Lake, which was the Literally Dead book club pick, and that's why I read it in 2022. And this was a very hot take of mine because I think that this is Riley Sager at his best, for me personally. Lots of people hate this. I would say this and Survive the Night, which I haven't read yet, and I probably won't read, are all around like Riley's most hated, generally agreed to be not good books. I thought that this was brilliant. I had so much fun. I loved it. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but like it was a time. And I'm okay with the fact that like it's not gonna get better than this for me because like this was a moment, just something personal, a moment between me and Riley. if you will. Then I read Home Before Dark because I knew that at the time, this seemed to be like, from what I'd heard from people, like his most well-loved, like generally people who read this like really, really loved it. If not, like it was one of their favorites. And I liked it. It was hard to follow this. And I had like kind of slightly been spoiled by this, like for this by accident, which I do think like it didn't ruin it for me, but I definitely think that like that could have bumped it up like a half a star. I think I gave this like 4 stars, maybe 3.5. But then last year, Riley published The Only One Left, which I thought was gonna be his last book for a while, because I'd heard like rumors that he was gonna stop writing at least for a couple of years. As we are sitting here today, obviously it's not true. If I was to recommend a Riley Sager book, and honestly, if I was to recommend a mystery thriller book to someone who wanted something that was like twisty and fun and was gonna get them out of a reading slump and they weren't gonna be able to guess everything because there's like lots of twists in here, this is what I would recommend. And I think that this was really well done, but again, it's not him for this one, why it didn't get 5 stars for me. I just think right now it's very hard for mystery thriller books to get 5 stars just because I've like read so many of them that eventually you like exhaust the wow factor of it because there's like only so many things that could happen. Which brings us to the next book that Riley Sager has published very recently this year. Oh my god, Oliver, you've got to stop. I'm like trying to keep my cool, but the last like 72 hours, no, that's actually not even enough. The last couple of weeks, Oliver, my sweet cat, whoa, like, it's been a lot. It's been very overwhelming. He's in an interesting era of his life that I don't know how to make him happy other than like he just wants to be outside, but like I can't just put him outside. It's not safe. I live by a big street, so I have to sit out there with him, but like I can't be sitting out there for like 5 or 6 hours a day. So the last couple of days we've sat outside for like an hour and a half. And I was hoping that that would like help get him like some of his energy out. He's not a kitten. He's like 6 years old. I was hoping that would help, and now it's just, like I stopped taking him for walks because what would happen is that all day long it was like impossible for me to film because I was filming like clips, like sentences in between him meowing to go outside. But it didn't work, like he didn't stop. So I was like, okay, well maybe if I don't reinforce the meowing, but I wait until the time that he's like not misbehaving for a little bit and then we go outside. And I'm sure I notice it more because I work from home. So like I'm home all day with him, but like I've been like near tears a couple of times because it's just been so overwhelming and frustrating. Anyway, that was a big side tangent for the middle of this section of the video. Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. That's the book that we're talking about. That's his recently published book. And it's also the first book that he's writing that is not from the perspective of a female main character, which Riley switching it up a little bit. But I will admit that makes me a little bit apprehensive just because like, do I care? Do I care? Am I gonna care enough about what is going on with this, like, dude, middle-aged dude? I guess we'll see. Like many mystery thriller books, I haven't read the synopsis of this, but from the little inklings that I've heard from people, the main plot of this that I know of is our main character, something happened to him when he was younger, like someone went missing in his neighborhood or something like that, and now he's like back home in his hometown and he thinks that possibly his like childhood best friend is haunting him, but like, is that the case? If like that's what we're being told? I don't know. I think it's supposed to be vague. We're not supposed to know, are these weird things supernatural or not? I wanted to check in with you before I even started, but I'm going to read a little bit and then come back. And then maybe I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about what's going on. Oh, I just pumped so much foundation on the back of my hands. Cool, 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 cool. I woke up this morning and thought, what if we did like something light and easy today for makeup? I already know where that's headed. I'm calling it right now. Riley Sager should have stopped while he was ahead. Riley is back in his what the fuck are you doing, Riley era. I can already tell. Nothing is happening in this book. And I'm only like, I think somewhere between like 30 and 40%. But like, what are we doing? Literally this entire time, I was hoping that I would, like, I kept reading because I was like, okay, I've got to have like something else that I can give them. Something else I can say to them. All we're doing is following this middle-aged dude around. He is sleep deprived and thinks that something is happening in his neighborhood because he has had to move back to the town and move back specifically to the house that he grew up in, where when he was 10 years old, him and his friend were like having a sleepover camp outside, and he woke up and his friend had been kidnapped and no one knows what happened. Ethan doesn't remember anything, but he's like, oh, but do I remember something? And like my brain's just trying to cover it up. I have these dreams all the time where like maybe I remember something, or maybe it's just like my brain trying to like give me answers since we have no answers. And then he's like, there are like all these signs that Billy is back. So like, is he still alive? Is he haunting me? What's happening? We've got like the implications of this culty institute being thrown in there for no fucking reason, because nothing has come of it. Like, all that's happening is him asking himself questions, being paranoid, talking to his neighbors that he grew up with that are like now adults that he was friends with as a kid on this cul-de-sac. And I just like don't care. He keeps calling his ex-wife. So like clearly there's something going on there that like we don't know. I don't want to spoil anything in case this isn't obvious to everyone else. Not that I could, because obviously I don't know what's gonna happen, but I could not be any more bored. And honestly, I couldn't give less of a shit about this main character. His name is Ethan. I just looked up his name. Riley loves to do this like, oh, is it a ghost? Is it not kind of thing? And it was like cute the first couple times, but like, I'm bored, Riley. I'm so fucking bored. And then I went to go look on Goodreads so that I could read the synopsis and find out what the main character's name is. And I saw that so many people also rated this book so lowly, and I'm like, great. So it doesn't get better. And I want to DNF it, which sucks because this was like my most anticipated book of the year. And I was a little hesitant about it, considering the premise, but I was like, it's Riley, gotta give him a shot. And something is gonna have to change fast in order for this to be something that like has any chance of being redeemed in my eyes. My only like sliver of hope for this is that The House Across the Lake was like pretty much widely hated by people, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. So I can like an unpopular Riley Sager book, but there's a very specific reason why that book worked for me that we can't get into here, but it can't possibly apply to this book. So it's not, and like even if it did, like you can't, that was like a one-time thing. I loved it. I get why people hate it. And I know that like I have that unpopular opinion, and that's why I don't really recommend it. It would have to pull off some incredible, amazing like twist of some sort. And I just don't know how you're gonna do that to the extent that's gonna undo how fucking bored I am. I picked up this book last night to continue trying to read it because I was like, maybe if I can get like halfway through, something will happen. And then by the time that I update you, I will like have some things to say that aren't, that I hate it. And I could not get myself to read it. I tried to read the first page of that chapter like 10 times and I just couldn't care. I kept like instinctually picking up my phone because my brain was like, this is of no use or interest to us. Let's do something else. Is this going to make me like not like Riley Sager or not pick him up in the future? No. As long as he continues to write, because I feel like he is very hit or miss. He either writes books that people absolutely love or that they absolutely hate. And I don't know why that is. Like, I don't know if it's just that like he's on this schedule where he has to publish a book every year, and sometimes he has a really good idea and sometimes he just doesn't, and he just word vomits on a page and puts out something that he kind of like knows is shit, but knows like everyone is gonna read anyway and they're gonna keep giving him chances. Or if he feels like confident going into every book and some just land and some don't. But it's impressive to say the least. So here's to hoping that this turns around for the sake both of the vlog and also for the future of my reading. Whoa, do I just keep digging myself deeper and deeper into a reading slump? But I think what's so disappointing is that when at first I heard that like Riley was gonna take a break from writing books for a while, and then that he was actually like writing another one, he was coming back, I was thinking in my head like, oh, okay, after like the only one left was really successful. So like if he is writing another book, maybe it's because he has like another really, really cool idea that he's excited about and he thinks is gonna be so good that like he doesn't want to have to wait to write. This feels like the only one left did really well, unlike The House Across the Lake the year before. So the publisher was like, come on, Riley, you know you want to write another book. Just write another book. Come on. Just like piggyback off of the success of the only one left. People are going to be so excited. That one did so well. It's going to be great. It's going to be such a fun time for us all. And he was like, I have no ideas. And they were like, it's fine. It's fine. Just like make something up. It's going to be fine. And then he was like, what is my primarily female audience going to find really, really entertaining and compelling? Oh yeah, the internal meanderings and bullshit of a 40-year-old dude who like just needs to like go to therapy. Cool. Okay, I stand by my initial prediction. I was right. What the fuck was that, Riley? Most of my complaints about this I really can't say without it like technically being a spoiler, other than the fact that like most everything was predictable, and what wasn't predictable, like predictable was so underwhelming. I just don't understand how this man manages to write such incredible mystery thriller books, and then also pull out shit like that. I was hoping that like maybe it would go there in a way that like people were giving it 2 stars because it like was a little out there and had like a controversial, you either love it or hate it kind of twist. No, it was so boring and basic. Technically the plot did pick up. I ended up finishing the last chunk of this like all in one sitting, but mainly out of like the fact that I didn't want to have to keep reading this. Like I was like, I just need to get this done. I need to see if this goes anywhere. Okay, I'm gonna have to wear my headphone because Willow loves to play with it and she will chew the earbud right off. I predicted like most of the plot twists to the point that I was like, is this even supposed to be a twist? I didn't predict one of them because I thought to myself, oh, this is a possibility. But then I was like, oh no, that would be stupid because that's like not really much of a twist. That would mean that all of our time was wasted if it was this. And yeah, book is pretty much just like a bunch of red herrings and then an unfulfilling, stupid conclusion. I'm sure that there are people out there that this book is for. It's not me. I wanted to give it 1 star. I'm giving it an extra star for Henry. Henry, one of the child characters in this, the only good part of this book. I hate the ending because of Henry. Not because of him, but because how dirty Riley did him. If you want to listen to the inner paranoia of some 40-year-old man that with a plot that ends up like going absolutely nowhere for like 300 pages, then I guess that this is for you. I'm gonna keep reading Riley Sager in hopes that this one was one of the duds because the next one is just gonna be incredible. Oh, also welcome to my bathroom. Please ignore the fact that I have to keep the toilet paper off of the roll, otherwise Willow will sit there and undo the whole thing and then tear it all to shreds. Esty Gibson and I have had an interesting relationship. I read A Dowry of Blood for the first time back in 2022, I think, and then I just reread it to see if like the vibes that I was feeling, because I considered this to be like an all-time favorite book, were in fact true, and they were in fact true. I absolutely love this book. Everything about it. I just think it is perfection. I could reread it again today. It is like a retelling of Dracula and his wives, except it's written from the perspective of one of Dracula's wives writing letters to him about why she killed him, and pretty much just illustrating their incredibly abusive relationship, but also the things that she got to see throughout her immortal life and the people that she got to meet and the relationships that she had. It's just absolutely impeccable, incredible, wonderful. It is written in second person, so it's addressed to you because she's writing to Dracula, but she never names him, and just literal perfection. So whenever I heard that Esty Gibson was coming out with another book, An Education of Malice, and that this was a sapphic vampire story, I was like, say no more, this is gonna be incredible. And then it was not. It was incredibly disappointing. I did a whole vlog reading this if you want to see my full reactions. I'm incredibly upset about the existence of this book. I don't get it. I think it was like wanting to be different from A Dowry of Blood, but like wasn't different enough, and also the ways that she tried to make it different just like made it worse. Like I would have been fine if this was basically just A Dowry of Blood, but set on a college campus and more sapphic and with different characters and like more modern and updated, since it was set in like fully in modern day, and this takes place like mainly way in the past. But the writing I just felt like was like so not up to par of what it was in A Dowry of Blood. I could have highlighted, I could sit here all day to you and read off the things that I highlighted, and I could have highlighted like pretty much this entire book. It was just such a beautiful, wonderful exploration of what it feels like to be in an emotionally abusive relationship, but also a beautiful, wonderful, lovely story about finding love, even in like really, really awful situations. Not with your abuser, to be very clear. Obviously she kills him. And I thought that's what this was gonna be, and then it was just really disappointing. However, that does not mean that I'm giving up hope. I completely forgot that this was coming out. For some reason in my mind, I had this coming out like in October, but it released at the end of May. So this hasn't been out, like this isn't super, super new, but like it's been out now that I'm reading this, like less than a month. And I did just get it in the mail. This is actually going to be very interesting because this is Esty Gibson's new book, but it's the first in a series. I don't know what that means. I don't know if this is going to be something that like ends on a cliffhanger and we're going to continue to follow these same characters throughout the series, or if this is kind of like how romance will have series, but like they're more companion novels and they follow different people, but then you get just like cameos and shout outs from the other couples. However, this is not just a romance. This, I do know, has a poly romance in it, which automatically count me in. And that is something that I loved about A Dowry of Blood, was the vampire-y polyamory in it. This is not vampires, it is like witches and sorcerers, and it is book 1 in the Summoner's Circle series. I have to admit, I got this package in the mail. I ordered this like on a whim when I figured out like, oh my god, I completely forgot that S.T. Gibson released a new book and I was not about to pay $18 for the Kindle version of it. So instead I paid $28 for the physical copy, and I had every intention of like immediately returning this and just going to try to get a copy from my library. But then, listen, it kind of won me over because I figured I could get a copy from my library, and then if I ended up loving it, if it was more A Dowry of Blood than An Education of Malice, because I did also go and buy this full price and I'm very pissed about it. I didn't want to make that same mistake again. However, I immediately bought it without a question, but I'm kind of glad that I did because look at this. Okay, one, the cover, let me see if I can, oh yeah, there we go. Absolutely just incredibly stunning. The back is like less impressive, but it still has that like silvered foiled edge. But then I was excited because listen, I know that not a lot of people love these, but I love when a book comes with like a little ribbon, and I feel like S.T. Gibson's books are the perfect amount of pretension to come with a little ribbon. And then I took off the dust jacket to start reading this because I never read with the dust jacket on. Excuse me? It has like the tarot cards and there's nothing on the back, but like this is like special edition level of, it's not gold. Is it still foiled if it's silver foiled? I don't know, but it's wonderful. And this is just like the regular hardback edition of this book as far as I'm aware. But I wanted to mention it because now I'm like, okay, fine. I'll keep it. Because either way it's beautiful and hopefully I'm gonna love this one more. And so far, is it A Dowry of Blood? No. But I think I need to adjust my expectations. A Dowry of Blood was all vibes, not a lot of plot, pretentious, beautiful writing, quotable moments, unhealthy relationships. But like, was anything really happening? No. An Education of Malice tried to have a little bit more of a plot. I felt like it kind of failed. This seems to be more focused on the plot, building this magical world, and then also building the characters and their relationships. I honestly, most of the time, could care less about a plot, mainly in the sense of if you give me beautiful writing and characters that I fall in love with, or that I fall to hate, but like, I love how much I hate them, that's fine. I don't care if there's a plot, I'm here for the vibes. This is definitely more plot. So we started off, I have read, it says I'm on page 42, but I'm pretty sure it started on page like 10. So I read like 30 pages. We have multiple perspectives in this, but it's not first person. It's third person, but we're like focusing on different people depending on what chapter it is. Our main players at hand. Number 1, David. David is recently or is about to turn 30. He's a lawyer in the day, a sorcerer at night who helps people to talk to their loved ones who have recently passed on and kind of help them grieve and, you know, move on. He's very into himself, he's very pretentious, as many S.T. Gibson characters are. Then we have Reese, who it seems like David and Reese have some history. Pretty sure they've dated in the past, something there, but then they had a falling out about 6 months ago. And the falling out seems to have also included Reese's wife, Moira. So we have Reese and Moira, but also David and Reese have dated. What is this, you may ask? A love triangle? Except what kind of love triangle? The kind of love triangle I've been begging for, which is that it's actually a triangle. Well, the David and Moira, like, love pining plot has yet to be, but listen, we've got some inklings there, okay? So I feel like this is gonna be an actual polyamorous love triangle instead of like what normally is happening, which is like a love V. And I have been begging publishers and writers to please, let's move on from the tired regular love triangle trope, because it's always so obvious that the protagonist is supposed to end up with one and not the other. And then we usually have to have something that like makes us hate the other person so that like we root for the like main love interest. Whereas what if they just like all got together? Thank you very much. And I think that that's what is going to happen here. And I don't think that's a spoiler because this is sold as like a poly fantasy magical book. So I feel like those assumptions, they're fair. And the vibes I'm getting have happened obviously within the first like 30 pages. So the magic part of this is obviously David and his stuff. Moira also is a witch, except in a very different way. It seems like she deals a lot with like astrology and signs and the planets and reading them and like reading tarot cards and things like that. Then Reese seems to deal a lot with like magical constructs and like trapping magical monstrous things like demons and more nefarious magical entities. Except David and Reese kind of like already have a connection because they're all in this like, well, David and Reese are in this fraternity together, this like magical fraternity that Moira isn't a part of because it's like a bros club. But they're trying to like make it less of a bros club. It's really only a bros club because of all of the old bros in there that are like so stuck in their ways and bleh. But anyway, so they still have like a working relationship, but Reese is like, you wronged me, I haven't forgiven you yet, please give me my space. And David's like, yeah, I would love to do that, except here's the thing is I think I'm possessed. And that's a bit of an issue for me because that's like not my specialty, but I do know it's yours. And Reese is like, yeah, sorry bro, I'd like to help you, but like you kind of fucked us over. And we learn a little bit more about that, but it's not in the synopsis, so I'm not gonna tell you. I don't think it's much of a spoiler, but like obviously something happened between them and we're starting to get a little bit of a glimpse into what that was. But he's like, yeah, no thank you. And then Moira's like, what if I helped you? Because in her mind, she's like, okay, like I would love to show off to this guy a little bit. And also, I'm not like a terrible person and I hate the idea of anyone being possessed, even if I'm like not their biggest fan. So that seems to be the plot line that's gonna kind of connect them all back together, reluctantly. So we've got like second chance romance going on. Not enemies to lovers, but like not even rivals. They just had a falling out, clearly, to hopefully lovers. Because here's the thing about S.T. Gibson. If there was one redeeming part of An Education in Malice, it was the smutty scenes. If I could have S.T. Gibson write every single smut scene in every book that I read, I would. Maybe I would really like romance books more if S.T. Gibson was the one writing them. I just think it was like perfection for what I'm looking for. The verbiage, the characters feeling like they are true and authentic to themselves, the way everything is described, it was sexy.
Honey,
it wasn't cringy.
you've got a big storm
For me, perfect.
coming.
So I'm hoping we obviously have some of that in this book. Although within the first 30 pages we haven't gotten there yet, fair enough. So even though this doesn't have that like purple prose that A Dowry of Blood has, I still feel like I'm gonna fuck more with this than I did in Education of Malice, just based off of where I'm at now. However, I was really liking the first like 60 pages of An Education of Malice and then I went downhill from there. So here's to hoping that doesn't happen this time. When this is like such a mood. Can you imagine me sitting at a cafe and you look over and I'm just reading this pretentious little gorgeous book with my little ribbon? Yes, please. Thank you very much. I feel like I've been reading this book for like literally ever, but like in reality it has been over a month. I think it was a combination of the fact that like it was a physical book and I was reading a lot in like the middle of the night, so reading on my Kindle was easier, but also I'm just like not interested and I don't really care. That kind of sucks because I like a lot of what this book is doing. I would like go to bat that S.T. Gibson is polyamorous because like she even in this book like references like a real poly book that like I literally recently read like a few months ago. This relationship between the three main characters, Reese, David, and Moira, hasn't gone in the way that I thought it would, which at first I was a little bit disappointed at, but like I do like it. I think that like what this does really well is showing the dynamics between them and how much they love each other and care for each other and how important different types of love are and how valid different types of love are. And like the idea of relationship and romantic love not needing to be on like some different higher level than every other type of love that we have in this life. And I can appreciate that, but like I'm so bored. The magic elements fell off extremely quickly from this. It's pretty much just them going around and around in circles talking and like fighting and arguing, but like also trying to find their way into getting back together or like in some way or form. You know, like David and Reese are exes, so they have that history there, but like I guess the fallout kind of involved all three of them. Not a lot of it has to do with the magic. There's like some research. There's like one instance of like a little ghosty ghost thing happening, but we stop seeing a lot of the like magical supernatural elements like pretty quickly into this book, and it's just a lot of talking. And a lot of research and a lot of nothing actually getting accomplished. And I guess like for the fact that this is the first book in a series, I can like kind of excuse that, but I don't care. So here's where I'm at. I'm like so close to being done. It's not gonna focus on this, is it? Hello? Hello? Well, you can see I'm very close to being done. And I, at this point, am just like committed to getting through the rest of this book. But the thing that I love about S.T. Gibson's writing so much, like I always come back to, which is that I really like the smutty scenes. not true about this book at all. They're so bad. And they're like almost non-existent. They might as well not even be in there. And I don't understand. I don't understand. It's like, I kind of wonder if this was like her first self-published book that's now getting like traditionally published, because there's not like that pretty prose that we see in A Dowry of Blood. There's not the good, smutty, and relationship building that we see that like was the one thing I liked about An Education in Malice. It like physically made me cringe, which most smutty scenes like normally do. And what I loved was that like hers didn't take me out of the story. Like they felt real and true and like didn't use any cringy wording that like isn't my thing. And it does in this one. So I don't even have that like to stand on. And that sucks because I'm always looking for better representations of polyamory and polyamorous relationships in books, especially in like fantasy romance. So I want to love this, but like I don't. I'm not enjoying myself at all, and not even in like a fun way. Like Middle of the Night was a fun way to not enjoy myself because like I could rant about it at least, and like it went by quickly because it was a mystery thriller book. This feels like I just cannot, like that every time I turn a page gets like added to the book, that it's like never ending. It just sucks. Also, my camera lens fell off. I kind of wonder, oh my god, you can see it. It is affecting. Great. Okay, I'm gonna have to take care of that. Because now I'm seeing, like right here on the sides, that you can see where I accidentally put it on the wrong way. Okay, well, I'll take care of that here in a little bit. Oh my god, and that's been in like so many of my recent updates. Great. Okay, I think hopefully that fixed it. A little too late, but here we are. Glad I at least noticed it at some point. My lens is now stuck on like the slightest bit crooked, which I'm just gonna have to get used to. Okay, I literally only have, let me see if I can get it without, there we go. I just don't want to put anything that like would be a spoiler. Literally only have like 14 pages left, so everyone send me good vibes as I make it through this harrowing time. Okay, I'm about to go into something that I guess like technically could be a spoiler, but I can't like not put it in this vlog. I don't think it is. It's not like a plot spoiler. If you go into this book, this is the assumed ending for something, generally. So like general mild, I would say very, very mild. Not plot, but like character and relationship based spoilers. So if you don't want that, skip ahead. I'll put a little thing down here. But I can't like let this go. And I need to know if anyone else thinks that this is so weird. Okay, so we're having this conversation between Reese and David. We're ending things. The book is almost done. Because I guess like they haven't talked for a couple of weeks, which is kind of weird given like what has happened, but whatever. We're not really told why they haven't talked because like they should want to, but anyway, I guess we're just supposed to assume that that's what's happening. And he's like, listen, David, I know that we've never been good at talking to each other, but like what I really want. And then look at this, okay? I want you to read this. Don't worry, I'll read it to you. He's pinning him in place with his dark gaze, okay? He's kissing his mouth open palmed. What do you think he's gonna say that he wants next? That he feels next? He says, brothers, Reese said, voice hoarse. That's what you are to me. Do you understand? Family. Dude, why brothers? But then, the next page, he's like, what are you asking me, Reese? Say it. Are you asking me to be your boyfriend? He just called you brothers. Okay, listen, I would consider my partners to be my family. Would I ever in a million years call Darcy my sister or refer to us as sisters? No, no. I get it because there's like it fits with the plot, which I'm not gonna go into, but it's weird. Am I the only one? Like I get it, but that's fucking weird. To like 1 second be calling each other brothers and then be like, do you want to be my boyfriend? It just like wasn't necessary. You could have been like it could have still related to the plot and everything that happened if he did that same show and was like, family, like you're my family. I want you to like be my family and I also want to be together. Like that, okay. Brothers is weird in that moment. Okay, I'm gonna say it. I'm calling it now. And it might just be that I hate this book. But like right after that, we're like moving into a sex scene and I can't get over that. Why did you put that in there? You could have gotten that point across without saying that. That's weird. Anyway, and it might just be that I hate this book. Why did you put that in there? Okay, I want to take back some of what I said earlier. Unfortunately, not in this book's favor. So I think I was like trying desperately to grasp at things that like I liked about this book because I wanted to love it. And by the end of this, like I was thinking about it more and like the relationship dynamics, and I completely forgot to mention that like we know from very early on that David, I still get them mixed up. Yeah, David struggles with, has struggled in the past with addiction and is currently sober. And the way that that is handled, questionable, I would say. Not necessarily like, but like how little it was talked about when like something happened and that came up, and how quickly everyone just like moved on from that and was like, yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine. And I'm like, oh, we're not gonna talk about that anymore? We talked about it for like one night and we're moving on? Okay, cool. Kind of the same thing with like how the poly aspects of this book come up. I would say if you're looking for the representation of like what I was looking for in this book and what I thought it was, and which I have seen in reviews, like it seems like possibly somewhere it was advertised that way. I could be very wrong about that, but like a lot of people talk about how S.T. Gibson like talked about this as like a pitched it as a thruple-y, witchy sorcery book. I would not describe this as a thruple as much as I would describe it as like a complicated relationship between the two people who are married, Moira and David, and who like seemingly love each other, although like do we see any of that passion on page ever? Not really. I didn't feel it. And Moira is a black woman, which this is important and will come up. David is white. I'm pretty sure Reese is too, but either way, neither of them are black. And they dated in the past, so they've like still got things going on. And then like, I would say that this is less, it's just, what am I trying to say here? I don't think that this book is claiming to be like a completely healthy look at polyamorous relationships. I think it's trying to throw in some of those aspects of like communication and working through your jealousy and like educating yourself, and the idea that like you don't have to have just like one love of your life in this world, and that like multiple loves and multiple types of loves can be equally valid. And I think that that's great. But like, I don't think anything about these characters, the relationship is like trying to make it seem like they're doing it perfectly, because they're definitely not. And how the poly like portions of this kind of start to come together, I wish again had been talked about more. And it overlaps with the other thing that I wish that I had talked about more. And it's so hard for me to talk about this like without giving spoilers. I just feel like we moved on from that entire situation so quickly. And like, yes, Moira like talked about like how she was okay with like David and Reese and their relationship as long as like everyone was honest. But like at the same time, and this was like a red flag to me even like while I was reading it, and I was just like, why did you put this in here? If like you are so clearly like you at least know a lot about poly relationships and have like explored that before, or like done a shit ton of research on it, like as an author, especially since it comes up like in a lot of her books, why would you have this idea of like calling it poly, but Moira and Reese still thinking that like they have a right to decide like who the other one dates? And that never really comes up, but like it's talked about as if they assume that. And then they like eventually work toward this idea that like, okay, you can have whatever you want and like whoever you want. But there was like this stipulation there for like a hot minute that like never really got talked through. That was like, okay, yeah, like as long as like you tell me about it, and like I wouldn't do anything you didn't want me to do. I wouldn't be with anyone you didn't want me to be. But like that's a veto. And like in polyamory, at least like in my opinion, like I don't think that vetoes are part of ethical non-monogamy. I don't think you can be in an ethically non-monogamous relationship and also veto who the person can date. I think that like if you both are in a loving and trusting relationship, if there is a valid reason why like that other person wouldn't want you to date that person, like they have been abusive in the past, or like they have been, they've hurt your partner in the past in like a way that like has not been mended and they haven't gone about mending it properly. Or like, I think that like we've had these conversations with my partner, like we never want to overstep, but like if we've heard things or like we know things about the dynamic that the person isn't being like truthful about, like that is one thing to like be like, hey, listen, just so you know, this is what's going on. And like trusting that your partner can make decisions that are healthy and safe for everyone involved. But like if they're not, that's a different conversation than like controlling who they're dating, or like having a say in who and when they can date someone and like what their relationship can be like. So overall, I just feel like this needed more working. And circling back to the Moira being a black woman with these two non-black love interests, it just feels a little bit like she is expected, and it's like the cool girl, you know? Like oh, she's cool with it, it's fine. Like, whatever. And she claims that, like, oh, she's never gonna do anything that she doesn't want to do. And it just feels like it falls into some stereotypes that we often see with Black women in literature that I'm disappointed to see happen. And I wasn't sure if like I was picking up on that correctly or not. So like I was going through the reviews and like looking at other Black reviewers, and like I've seen that pop up a few times and like seen that be things that they've mentioned. So like that's who I'm gonna defer to on whether that was handled correctly. And it seems like the consensus from what I'm seeing from some of the reviews that I've seen by Black reviewers is no. But obviously I'm not a Black woman, I can't speak to that, but I do think that it's important to bring up, especially since that is something that like I then saw reinforced in reviews that I was reading. And overall it just felt like David and Reese's relationship like was the center of things. And I think S.D. Gibson tried to like put Moira in there as like, oh, her and like David over time are developing this relationship of their own, but like it's different, but like it's still valid. But like, again, I just didn't feel any of it. I didn't feel any of it. And I think for a little bit, my review was gonna be like a 2.5, but I think, I don't know why I would give this more than a 1. Nothing about, I skipped over the last sex scene. I couldn't have cared less at that point. Like, especially because of what I was saying in the spoiler section of this. This was probably like, I would say up there, if not more of a disappointment for me than the Atlas Complex. The Atlas Complex might have been, I would say the Atlas Complex is still my like biggest disappointment of the year, since it was the end of a trilogy that I loved. And I was going into this a little hesitant after reading An Education in Malice, but I would say that this was like one of the worst books that I've read this year, for me personally. And like my expectations and what I know it could have been compared to what I've seen this author write in the past. Which sucks, because yes, I did pay $30 for this book, so there we have it. And it's so pretty. It is the beginning of a series. It seems like it's a 4-part series. I don't know if it's already been written, because there's like a spot in the back of the book that like tells you whose story you're following in each section. And I feel like we're setting up a love interest for Moira that like, I don't care about. Am I gonna continue on? Probably not. But also don't let that stop you, because from a lot of what I'm seeing, especially people who I like follow on Goodreads, a lot of people are really loving this. It just definitely wasn't for me. And it should be. Like, it's literally written in a way that like should be right up my alley. Which I think is the point. I think that's just like why I'm so pissed off, that I feel like so many aspects were done so poorly. But I feel like I'm just kind of like going around in circles at this point. Overall, I wouldn't say that this was a very successful vlog. I'll probably end up giving this like 1.5 stars. That's what I'm feeling now. So we have a 1.5 for evocation, evocation, don't know. I'm never ever gonna know where to put the emphasis on that word. 2 star for Middle of the Night, and like a generous 3 for Tidal Creatures. So overall, I would say these like new releases were just a little bit disappointing. They were all kind of like, I guess like at the end of the day, all of these were shots in the dark. I was just hoping that one of them would be hits, and they were just unfortunately all misses. But what are you gonna do? But since we've had a lot of talk about like magic and ghosts and stuff, go ahead, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave a little ghost emoji down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this kind of video, or if you just like enjoy watching me, I would love if you liked and subscribed. Unless you're already subscribed, then thank you so much for being here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!